Very briefly, Dr. Jenkins, the mother who came to speak with us in the pre-agenda about her child minimally participating, and then she was confused about what that means, and she seems to feel as if she's not getting an answer. I was hoping you could shed a little light onto that. Do you know, did anyone happen to speak with her after?
Yes.
Okay, could you kind of share with us what you found out?
Yeah, so she's been spoken with several times. Staff has spent some time with her. There are alternatives that can be taken care of. She was spoken with again tonight. Area Superintendent Bridget Williams actually went outside and spoke to her again. And so there are alternatives. If you don't participate in the FSA, then the state has guidelines by the State Board of Education regulations on other means by which you can show proficiency. And so they've been talking with her about that. In an instance where someone says, well, I'm not interested in doing the portfolio assessment and I don't want to take the Iowa test of basic skills, we will communicate to the State Department of Education to say, this is what they've indicated to us. Is there anything else we might be able to do? And we'll copy parents on that. We only have, I believe, 5 that we're still working on, trying to come up with a solution on. Hopefully we'll get her settled rather swiftly. But there are opportunities and other means by which they can meet the state requirement. The problem is previously it said if you had a level 1 you would be held back. Now the language says you have to have a 2 or a 5 or one of the other provisions in order to be promoted. Like I said, we only have 4, maybe 5, I believe, that we're still dealing with, and we'll communicate with the State Department of Education and keep them abreast of it. But she's been spoken with several times.
Okay, good. Well, I just wanted to follow up for my,
Absolutely.
because I didn't know the outcome of that. And then also, while we're discussing that, I heard from several different parents at different schools this year that different schools handled it differently, that like when a child minimally participated the first day, then some schools had them sit and stare the next, and some actually set them in a different area. And I was just curious, I'm hoping it is school by school that someone can choose to do that, or do we have a standard?
We've been pretty standard in our communication. As I shared with the board previously, we didn't change anything from last year. So if you have particular examples, we'd be happy to check into them.
Well, I actually like the idea that a child can go somewhere else after they've chosen to minimally participate. That's so hard to say, the first day, because I think actually they could be a distraction for the other children.
They can be, and some parents
room.
just choose to keep their child at home as well. So we can certainly have that
Because
discussion.
you don't want them distracting our children who are there wanting to do their best and take the test. So thank you.
Ms. Flynn.
Thank you. And to just dovetail on what Ms. Robinson was saying about that you're hearing different things. I had too, and I think the issue is if a child misses the first part for the second day, that's where they're not testing. Because if you've missed the first part. So I think that's where the confusion is coming in.
Ms. Moore.
Mr. Chair, I saw that you had canceled the Marzano training. Maybe you could just give a little more detail about when that will be rescheduled?
We're rescheduling it, and we're trying to get a date, Ms. McGill, before the July break. And I'm sorry, it was sort of a selfish reason. I've sort of made a point of wanting to do the Marzano training myself, and I'm out of town that week. And I thought it would just really not smell good to some if, I'd sort of pushed and pushed for this and I didn't show up myself.
Okay,
So-
well, because
but we are gonna get it
the
done
union
before
was
the summer.
asking, and I wanted to follow up
Yeah.
because they asked me on Saturday if I knew when it would be rescheduled. So I'm happy to hear that you think it will be rescheduled for June.
It will. We're working on a date, so thank you. Appreciate y'all's interest too in it. I was going to say something. Oh, I just can't help but editorialize here. I almost wish that I can on an audio device and replay that testimony when I'm out there in the public, because I'm going to be very frank, and I didn't say anything at the time, but I would not again even if I had the chance to, but that broke my heart, because that's a child whose educational advancement is being harmed because of a parental decision. And, we've been saying that, many of us on this board, if not all of us, for years. And anyway, I think sometimes there's a lot of misinformation being disseminated out there, that there are no effects if you choose to pursue this course. And we know as you know, as school board members and the educators in this room know that it can have a, you know, a deleterious effect on the educational advancement of a child. And, you know, I really wish I could have just have a way to replay that in the future when parents say, you know, that we're going to do this and it's not going to have an effect on my child's education, because it is. And that's a shame, because it sounded like that was a bright child that shouldn't be in this situation. So, enough said. Ms. Moore, did you have something else, or was that?
I had the opportunity to speak with her because she was from one of my schools, and Dr. Williams did a great job of giving her every opportunity to change her mind to retake an assessment of her choice. Of course, that would qualify over the summer. And so I think the sticking point was that her interpretation of the law was not the district's or the state Dewey or our attorneys. And she was quite convinced that her interpretation was correct. And that's, you know, where we sort of ran into difficulty. But the children were precious, and I couldn't get a read on why it was so upsetting to her to take any test at all. I'm really not sure. But she tried, so we're
Wow.
hopeful. We're hopeful that they can convince her. So we have the whole summer, and Dr. Williams really reached out to her. Hopefully, she'll, whatever the issue is, to get over taking those tests. I'm hopeful.
And I think what bothered me, and is and I appreciate this conversation on this, is every time I hear testimony of that type, I'm always reminded of what, you know, the saying about America, that we're a country of laws, not men. And there are a lot of laws I don't particularly care for. There really are. I mean, I could sit down and write out a list of 10 or 12 that I don't think are good laws, but that doesn't matter. We don't have the right to individually interpret the laws. We have to abide by the laws that are passed by this country and by this state. So it just, sometimes I wish, I'm preaching now, so forgive me, I'll be quiet, but sometimes I wish we could get that message across, because I think it's the kids who are being harmed. All right, with that, we are adjourned. See everybody over at the Hilton.